from both places, I hope. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure, but hey. So, what are we going to go through today? What's going to happen in today's little clip? We know that we can become even more fatigued as we progress through perimenopause. And we know, because we've discussed in our previous meetings, that menopause brain is slightly different to how the brain behaved prior to perimenopause. And it's going to be slightly different going forward beyond. Now, we also know that sleep is hugely important for maintaining our brain function, maintaining our bodily functions. So let's just talk about me for a minute. I know who I am and how I can talk to you about all things menopause, midlife, and all that crap that comes along with it. So I'm an older single mum. I have one super amazing daughter who herself has had lots of challenges, and we get through those together. But what do I know about menopause? So my menopause journey has not been straightforward. I'm not actually sure what a straightforward menopause journey is. I didn't get any perimenopause symptoms until I was in my mid-50s. It was just post-menopause when we've been through all the stress, so I was putting it down to all of that. I was in my mid-50s, so I thought I'd swerved everything. And then I had one horrendous weekend. So I had to talk to a medical professional because I didn't actually know what I could do about my situation. I hadn't actually related any of my previous symptoms to being in perimenopause. I hadn't put that together. And I'm not sure why I hadn't put it together, because my background, I have a biological science degree. So it's in equine science, I know, but still. And then I became a science teacher, I know. But I hadn't put it all together. I hadn't figured that my symptoms, I was having hot sweats. I could walk into a room and just be dripping. Increased anxiety. I put that down to my past experiences. Low self-esteem, again, put down to my past experiences. It wasn't until I had one really horrendous weekend where I had an awful lot of symptoms to do with menstruation that really knocked me sideways that I started thinking, oh, maybe all these other symptoms are related. And then went to gynecologist, so phoned doctors 6 months later, because it does take a while, went to gynecologist, walked through the door, and the gynecologist said, you should be out the other side by now. Since found out that that's not always the way, and that we know the average age to go through into menopause is 51, 52-ish, depending on which data you read. So as I was a little bit older than that, yes, I was above average. But the average is the span, isn't it? We are not all the same age when this happens. So here we are. Me talking about menopause because it affects me on a daily basis, because it has changed how I've had to deal with my life, and also because I'm one end of the scale and my daughter has been the other end of the scale. So hormones affect an awful lot of our household. And for us to be able to function on a daily basis, we need to be rested. We need to have the energy to get through the day. And the problem with menopause, the perimenopause going on into menopause, one of the big symptoms is fatigue. And that in itself is difficult to deal with, but harness that together with other symptoms like insomnia, restlessness, and things can start to get a little bit complicated. So, why do we need to sleep? Why do we need to get ourselves into a good sleep pattern? We need time for our brains to shut off. We need time for our brains to absorb and take in what has happened to us during the day. We need time to switch off and chill and relax. And we need to do that during our sleep. So we've got, when we sleep, different sleep patterns that are going on. So we've got our non-REM sleep. So this is where the brain shuts down, shuts off. It's quieter, it's relaxed more. And then we've got our REM sleep, which is where the brain is a little bit more active. That was when you can get the judderings and the shakings. It's called rapid eye movement because your brain's not quite switched off. But that is when it's giving you the pictures, giving you the images. It's the dream state. So you are asleep, but things are still happening, not necessarily relevant to what's happening to you. Some of us can remember our dreams, some of us can't remember our dreams. On average, majority of adults need between 7 to 8 hours of sleep per every 24-hour cycle. That doesn't always happen. And it doesn't always happen that it's undisturbed. And especially as we get on and we get into perimenopause, where we've got other issues like we need to get up and go to the toilet, those sorts of things. Our digestion isn't as settled. We are stressed and overthinking. So that can shorten the amount of time that we actually have for our brains to declutter, sort themselves out, and reset. So we have to think about ways that these sleep patterns can affect us. So one of the major sleep problems that we have during perimenopause as we go on into menopause. So we know about hot flashes. Now those hot flashes can continue through the night. We can have them in the daytime. We can have them just by getting up. We can just have them just being sat still. We have those moments when we feel a flush. Well, we can have those at night and it can make sleeping difficult. Couple that with night sweats and it can be difficult to regulate the temperature within our bedroom. So we want to have the room where we are sleeping to be quite cool. We want to have it to have fresh air and we want to be comfortable whilst we are sleeping. So we need to think about what we're going to wear when we sleep. I know there's lots of discussions about whether you should wear clothing or not clothing, personal preference, whatever you want to do, wear whatever you want. Just if you are going to wear clothing, keep them to natural fabrics so that they don't increase and irritate the skin to make you sweat more. You might want to sleep with the window open. Depends where you live, depends on how you feel. You want to try and make your room as dark as possible, as quiet as possible, so that you're not disturbed by light coming in, you're not disturbed by sounds coming in. Now, there are certain supports, implements, materials that you can get, that you can use. You can get cooling pads. You can get things like weighted blankets. Now, weighted blankets, you can get cool weighted blankets, but a weighted blanket sort of like holds you in place and comforts you. They can work for some. You can try them. You might want to make sure that you have lots of layers on so that if it's the winter and you're going to bed and you're cool at some point, you can strip the layers off. Then when you get cold, you can put the layers back on. The same in the summer. You might not want to have too many layers on. Now, you might be like me. I have to be covered. I have to have something over me. It doesn't matter how hot it is, where I am on the planet. I still have to have something covering me. But it can be different layers so that I'm not getting overwhelmed by what I've got on top of me. So, what can we do about the overthinking? Now, we do overthink, and I know we overthink. And a lot of the time, as you're trying to get yourself into sleep, that is when all of those thoughts come in and start to overwhelm us and disrupt our sleep. Now, the problem is, as the estrogen declines, we're less able to control those thought processes and maintaining the regulation, the body regulation. So disturbed sleep can put us into this cycle. Our sleep is disturbed, so we're irritated. We're stressed, so we can't sleep, so we're irritated. And this starts to affect our mood, it starts to affect how we feel about each other, and we get into this cycle or this spiral because we're not sleeping. Then we get stressed. Because we're stressed, we're not sleeping, and it starts to increase and increase. So we need to think about ways that we can start to decrease our anxiety, our stress before we get into bed. So things like nighttime routines, so that we can have the time to let our brain switch off, to get that rebuild time, that restorative time when our brains are going to be refreshed and our bodies in the morning. So we can try things like a bedtime routine. We can switch off our devices. We can read for some quiet time, some nonsensical, fictional, that's not going to stress our brains before we go to bed. We can try things like meditations that are going to calm us and relax. We can do some deep breathing. We can have some lavenders, those sort of things ready so that we are calming ourselves before we sleep. So they can help relax us and get us ready to fall asleep and have a longer sleep duration. Now, remember, insomnia, which can be brought on by the anxiety, by the stress, by the night sweats, can prevent us from being able to fall asleep in the first place. So we want to give ourselves the best chance. We want to build up that bedtime routine so that we are as relaxed as we possibly can when we go to bed. Now, an often not talked about symptom that we can come across during perimenopause is something called restless leg syndrome. Now, some of us are a bit weird and have had this. I've got fidgety feet, which isn't quite restless leg syndrome, but it's sort of the same. I've always got to be moving my feet, twiggling my toes all the time. But with restless leg syndrome, it's it's more exacerbated than that, and you have to move your legs. You have to keep them or move them around, and that can disturb how you try to get to sleep. Just imagine you're lying there and you need to move your legs. Are you going to sleep? Nah, it's not going to happen, isn't it? And it's often found that your restless leg is worse as you're trying to get to sleep at night. Now, this is when you might need to consider, because there are things that you can do, you might need to consider supplementation, things like magnesium, which helps to us get off to sleep, or HRT, which can help bring up your hormone levels, replace your hormone levels. I can't prescribe either. That is something that I can suggest, but you would need to look into that more with a medical professional to see whether it's something that would be viable for you. Now, what we're talking about a lot of the time now as we are moving forward is how all these menopause symptoms are affecting us as modern, middle-aged, midlife women. And what we were talking about 30, 40, 20 years ago is not the same now. The dynamics have changed. The world dynamics have changed, for starters, and dynamics about how women are perceived, how relationships are perceived, has all been changing. So we need to start future casting. We need to start looking at where we're at and where we're going to be. We cannot rely on tradition that we're going to end up in the same place that we were before. So we need to start thinking about ways that we can be less stressed as we age. And one of the big stressors as we age is our financial security and our financial stability. So this is connected to our stress levels, our brain health, how we feel about ourselves, our esteem. And what we're also seeing that if we are less stressed, our cognitive function is improved. The more stressed we are, the less likely we are to be able to function on a daily basis. So we need to think about why we would want to future cast, why we would want to look at our finances as a midlife woman as we move on through perimenopause, on into menopause when we're 50 something. So there are lots of studies and evidence showing that women in midlife, more women than ever, are finding themselves on their own. And that leads to a different financial future than originally anticipated. Now, this can be for a number of reasons. 40% of working women find that they cannot maintain the same work relationship, work status as they did prior to menopause symptoms starting. And that can be for a number of reasons. And that could be because place of work doesn't understand menopause, frequently happens. You as a woman are unable to function to the same level as you did prior to menopause. So it can make maintaining your position slightly different. We're also seeing family dynamics change an awful lot. And now a lot of nurture burdens have always and still continue to be put on the female of the family. Be that looking after older relatives, or be that looking after your own children's children. So it could be either scale of caring responsibilities. They often come down to the female members of the family because traditionally that's what has happened. And women are meant to be better at work, at nurturing. We've had those hormones, those progesterones, those estrogens, the ones that are doing it at the minute. They're there to help us to nurture. That's what we are meant to do. That was our job. So how can we go about looking after ourselves and protecting ourselves financially if we find our personal dynamics changing so that we are having to look after other family members, we are having to fend on our own? What can we do about it? So the first one is to get another job. So we've just discussed that we might not have not only the willpower, but we might not have the energy to be able to take on a second job. We might not even logistically have the time in the day if we have other responsibilities to take on a second job, or maybe a third job. Depends on how many jobs you already have. So there are alternatives that we can look at, that you can look at, that we can discuss, that aren't the traditional going out and getting yourself another job. And we associate some of these with younger people. And we associate some of these with people who are more savvy on tech. And we associate some of these with, I'm going to say it, men. So I have at my disposal income producing opportunities that Don't need you to leave home. Have lots of support to show you how to do them. Have lots of women, same age, and they don't have to impact the job that you're doing at the moment. They could take over the job that you're doing at the moment. And you can do them by using your phone, your laptop. Yes, they can be online, but there's lots of support to show you how to do any of these. So these can be helping you with traveling, showing you how to invest. Yes, we still can invest at our age. Learning how to trade. And even, I'm going to mention the word, don't run for the hills, crypto, because it is a way forward. So, I hope all of this has been interesting for you. What I would like you to do is to jump on a call. We can talk about your future, how we can improve your future from a physical point of view and from a financial point of view. I look forward to talking to you soon. My name's Tracy Montgomery. I talk about all things menopause, midlife, and all the crap that goes with it. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Recording stopped.